talking about Mike Huckabee's speech. Governor Huckabee gave a very good speech. And it is interesting because there are parts of Mike Huckabee I like. I think he's going to be a very strong candidate. I think there are other strong candidates as well. And as he points out in the speech, hey, we're not going to agree with each other all the time. A couple key points to the speech. He talked about hope, and he did it very well by articulating how the government has overstepped. Now, I'll post the full speech up on the Facebook a little later, but the comment that got everybody, not everybody, no, just the reactionary mainstream media who distorted actually what he said. Because this was a speech, I mean, they had to find this piece of the speech, because if you looked any other place, you're going to look at President Obama's failed record, and the record of failure coming from the left that manifests itself in the Democratic Party. Not about R's or D's, but I'm not going to dance around it. It's a reality. And so they have to find this one place, and then they have to report it in a way that is not honest by tweeting it first. We're going to give you an example of that. So, you like that? Governor Mike Huckabee spoke to the RNC, and here's what he said regarding women and the view of, well, let's just roll it.
I think it's time Republicans no longer accept listening to the Democrats talk about a war on women. Because the fact is, the Republicans don't have a war on women. They have a war for women, for them to be empowered to be something other than victims of their gender. Women I know are outraged that the Democrats think that women are nothing more than helpless and hopeless creatures whose only goal in life is to have the government provide for them birth control medication. Women I know are smart, educated, intelligent, capable of doing anything that anyone else can do. Our party stands for the recognition of the equality of women and the capacity of women. That's not a war on them, it's a war for them. And if the Democrats want to insult the women of America by making them believe that they are helpless without Uncle Sugar coming in and providing for them a prescription each month for birth control because they cannot control their libido or their reproductive system without the help of the government, then so be it. Let us take that discussion all across America, because women are far more than the Democrats have played them to be, and women across America need to stand up and say, enough of that nonsense. And I think it's time we lead that discussion.
How on earth is that? How he cares? That's what he's saying the Democrats believe, and made it about forcing everybody and imposing their values on others to make people provide free contraception. Nothing free. You're going to pay for it. And that's obviously the ridiculous conversation that we have with President Obama not understanding that, but that's a digression. The point, how on earth does that become offensive? Because he mentioned what the Democrats actually made the election about, and how absurd it was, and how it really marginalizes women, to say the least, and is insulting. Andrea Mitchell disagrees. Roll it.
Which political story will make headlines in the next 24 hours? Casey Hunt is back with us from the Republican National Committee's winter meetings, because, Casey, I think it's going to be Mike Huckabee. Now, let's put the context here. What Mike Huckabee was doing was saying that Republicans are not waging a war on women, that they are waging a war for women, and he accused Democrats of trying to portray women as some weak figures who need protection. But this is the way he phrased it.
And if the Democrats want to insult the women of America by making them believe that they are helpless without Uncle Sugar coming in and providing for them a prescription each month for birth control because they cannot control their libido or their reproductive system without the help of the government, then so be it. Let us take that discussion all across America, because women are far more than the Democrats have played them to be, and women across America need to stand up and say enough of that nonsense.
Now, that was Mike Huckabee trying to say that women don't need birth control and the Democrats shouldn't be demeaning women by making them appear so weak. But the way he phrased it is only going to add to this, to the past arguments and continuing arguments about the way some Republican candidates in the past have talked about women.
He wasn't saying that, Andrea. He was talking about the fact of looking at women only in this box of birth control and making the fact that if you don't support a policy that dramatically oversteps, that somehow you are against women. And I realize, even saying that, how absurd it is. And as you're listening, you're sitting there going, that does sound odd. Yeah, it does, because it comes from the left and it's ridiculous. But the interview continued with correspondent Hunt Rowlett.
And the tone in particular, and that's sort of what we've talked a lot about as far as, how the GOP has been trying to reach in its appeal to women voters. And, the way he phrased this sort of comes as Republicans here are actually trying to focus on rebranding the party and helping them reach out to other constituent groups. And while it's clear that Huckabee was saying that this is how Democrats feel, it was still sort of the tone and the nature of the way that he made his comments has already raised a lot of eyebrows.
Well, he is the featured keynote speaker there, so they knew what they were getting, and this is the way he phrased it. But again, he was conditioning it, saying that if Democrats believe that women are such weak creatures, to be continued.
I did bump into Mike Huckabee on his way out of his speech. I'm sorry, Andrea. I did bump into Mike Huckabee on his way out of his speech, and he didn't have anything to say about his comments.
Well, it's obviously creating a lot of buzz there. Thank you very much. I think that's it for today.
She's just bursting because the Democrats don't have to focus on anything else he said, and they can actually distort what he did say. Isn't it great? That's what we do in the mainstream media. That's why it's corrupt. That's why I mean, I want to focus on the personality of Andrea Mitchell. I don't know her. I do know that if you listen to the speech, 30-minute speech, it's a fantastic speech. It focuses in on economic growth, but really puts it in the form of having a dream, providing real hope, understanding what the government's doing through the tax code, among other things, punishing success, the general philosophy of punishing producers. And this is about freedom. He cites the 64, I believe, Moynihan comment about the American family and the breakdown of the American family and how that is the central foundation. If we look at where the breakdown is of the American family, but also why we don't see economic mobility, it is the foundation of everything. I talk about this every day. And in fact, cite the Moynihan study a great deal. And his comments about the study, which he was called a bigot for, by the way. But he was speaking out of wedlock birth. And as we are looking at a society right now, there's something very wrong. And it is the breakdown of the American family. But if you talk about the American family and you talk about the breakdown of the American family, and you talk about mothers and fathers, somehow that becomes judgmental. Somehow that becomes a practice of vocalizing things that are attempting to shame others rather than obvious. We are really sensitive to that. At least that's what we're told. We're told we're really sensitive to these things. We really can't talk about them because then you're insulting single parents. No. Absolutely not. You're pointing out that there is a plan, there is a structure, and it is a family structure of a mother and a father. And if you disrupt that, you're going to see the social consequences of it. And you see it in education, you see it in societal ills, drug use, jail, incarceration, however you want to put it. It's certainly an impediment to growing economically. But he was talking about the government's vision for the people as opposed to the people's vision for themselves. And in essence, what I thought really was what God's plan was for us. And he talked about that as well, because he made it about life. It's a brilliant speech. I'm doing a disservice to it by recapping it. You need to hear it. It's a speech that you're going to come away and go, how much dope do you have to smoke to get to the paranoid delusion that this was an attack on women? I mean, what do you understand? I say that because it makes you crazy. And you got to wonder, people looking at this and coming out with an attack on women, what? What? Really? You know what? As Mike Huckabee pointed out in the speech, we're at 6.7% unemployment, 90 million plus people have left the workforce, highest number, lowest workforce participation in years. We look at a tax structure that penalizes people that are achieving and advancing and growing. And he also talked about Obamacare. Again, I don't want to disrupt or recap the speech. I want to say that this was a good speech. You should look at it. You should read it. I don't care if you like Huckabee, don't like Huckabee, would vote for him, not vote for him. It's okay. Real early, by the way. But this was a great speech. This was a fantastic speech. And dare I say, it was Reagan-esque in what he was putting forth. Did you agree with everything? I don't know if I agreed with everything. No, probably not. There are styles to candidates. That's not the point. The point was he was actually focusing in on the problem and a foundation for an agenda that can be articulated and communicated and draws a sharp contrast to the one put forth by the left. But the left, if they actually had to look at the speech, they'd have to address the absolute failure of this administration. Our president has failed. And they can't focus in on that because it gets pretty tiring day in and day out of pointing out how things aren't getting better, how there might be a little quake in the stock market, which people have been talking about for some time now of pulling back. By the way, you want to get insight into the general economy and financial issues, Dan the Man Celia. That's why I say lock it in. But if you're looking at this and saying, oh, wow, how'd they get it? They got this because they can't focus on anything else. They can't address what abortion truly is, which he was talking about. And so, yeah, it got me exercised. How'd you hurt your foot, Crane? Did you put it through a television? No, I did not do that. I was jogging and, well, sideline note. But I wanted to, because as I see this being put forth in this headline, this just shows you how corrupt things are. And so if you say, Crane, why? We already know this. Well, then tell others. Explain to others. Get them to tune into Nothing But Truth. Because, listen, they're all waking up now. Everybody's getting bitten by this thing called Obamacare. And it's unfortunate they didn't wake up with Fast and Furious. It's unfortunate they didn't wake up with Benghazi. Really unfortunate. It's unfortunate they didn't wake up to the IRS scandal. Maybe they will someday. Maybe that will be the door opening for them. This being the door, being Obamacare, of what they promised, what they delivered, how it does not work, how it goes against human nature. It also goes against what our Constitution, our Declaration outlined in the recognition of human nature and limited government. President Obama could not last an hour with somebody who was informed on the issues. If it was an honest debate, it wouldn't last an hour. Because what you would hear is what you hear oftentimes, I believe, in the classrooms around the United States on college campuses, a bunch of theory that when you actually challenge them on it, it caves because history is not kind to liberalism. As Thomas Sowell has been pointing out in a series of articles, fact-free history. So what Huckabee did, he outlined the problem. He identified the problem. He talked about a path forward. He did some other things as well regarding the inner fighting in the Republican Party. But, that's R's and D's, and that's for others. Bottom line, the news is why they're focusing in on this and only this. It's because that's all they can do. Because as they tell you how good this all tastes, as it makes us sicker and sicker, they are running out of places to go where they don't run into the cold, hard truth of Obama, leftism, liberal failure. And I say Obama only because he's been the driving force behind it. I don't know the president. I haven't spoken with him. He could be a nice guy, okay? I don't know. A lot of times if somebody lies to me and lies straight to my face, I don't think they're a real nice guy. But I digress. Crane Durham's Nothing But Truth, AFR Talk.